Hello, and welcome to Wellness Talks, Forest Bathing and Exploring Wisconsin State Parks. I'm Karen Cater with the Madison Senior Center, and I'd like to thank you all for being here today to celebrate Earth Day with us. It is our pleasure to host this program along with Monona Terrace, and a big thank you to our sponsor, All of Us, for their support. Today's program will feature two speakers, Kate Bast of Shinrin-yoku, Madison, and Missy VanLanduyt from the Wisconsin State Park System. Both will present for 40 minutes. We will be offering Q&A for both speakers at the conclusion of the program. However, you can type in a question at any time during the presentation. Do this by using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Again, questions will be answered at the end of the program. So let's start with our first speaker, Kate Bast. Kate is a certified nature and forest therapy guide and founder of Shinrin-yoku, Madison. Kate has lived in Madison for 25 years with her husband and 2 children. And until she found her path to nature as a healing practice, Kate worked in the editorial publishing industry. Her talk today will focus on forest bathing and the health benefits of being outdoors. It's my pleasure to introduce Kate Bast.
Hey everybody, thank you Karen so much for that lovely introduction and for inviting me to talk today about a topic that I am super passionate about, and that is forest bathing. And today we're going to talk about what it is and why nature makes us feel good, including the science behind it. And I'll give you an overview of each of these, and then we'll close my portion by enjoying a little taste of forest bathing, a digital version of it, at the end of my talk before we go on to hear about great places to go forest bathing. So just think about how you spend time in nature. What are your favorite things to do in nature? And how it makes you feel when you're out there enjoying them. For most of us, the answer in a nutshell is probably simply that nature makes me feel good. And while at any time in nature has a positive impact upon us, 20 minutes is the recommended daily allowance, forest bathing is a practice and process that really steeps us in nature in a much deeper sense than just say a run through the woods or a hike while chatting with friends. Or fishing with a bunch of buddies on a boat. So it really steeps us in nature and amplifies those feel-good effects. So for starters, what is forest bathing? It is immersing oneself in the atmosphere of nature to engage and activate all of the senses, turn off the working mind, and just be. It's about leaning in, full in to what is pleasing and staying with it, noticing where in our bodies that we're feeling it and how, and maybe what else it summons up for us. Pleasure is a felt experience, right? We feel pleasure. Is it mindfulness in the woods? Sort of, because it is leaning into and having an awareness of the present moment. But truly, I like to call it mindlessness in the woods, because when we are present in our senses, experience a place or a moment with our senses, what happens is we actually drop out of our thinking, working, doing, organizing parts of our brains. Those that process, analyze, think back or think ahead, and drop instead into the here and now. And we turn off that hamster wheel in our brains, right? That constant process. And forest bathing, opening up to our senses, is really a different kind of knowing. It's a different way to approach nature. The structure of a forest bathing walk actually ensures we enter that sensory activation state. And how does that work? Well, to help us understand, let's start with what forest bathing is not. It is not a cardio hike. It's not a naturalist walk. I'm not pointing when I'm guiding on a walk, tree name, species, genus, etc., because that is an intellectual and an organizational process and kind of knowledge, and that keeps us in our working brains and on that hamster wheel, right? And it's also not psychotherapy. I am not a licensed psychologist, but it is therapeutic, and it is bringing us a bit of relief from those things that we may be seeing a psychotherapist to address. But still, please go to your therapist. You can do forest bathing in addition, but it doesn't replace that relationship you have with your therapist. Forest bathing goes by many names, which you may be more familiar with. I call it Shinrin-yoku, and that term was coined by the Japanese Forest Ministry in 1982 as part of an effort to get citizens into Japan's beautiful forest systems to actually help them with stress and well-being. And some of the other names you can see are here on screen: nature immersion, forest therapy, nature connection. And though Shinrin-yoku is a modern term, really, this is an ancient practice for modern times. The earliest people, it was how they lived their daily lives, not just on, but also with nature. You've probably heard the term nature deficit disorder. That was coined by Richard Louv, who wrote Last Child in the Woods and some other fantastic books. Now, that's a modern term for modern times, and it is essentially a diagnosis explaining that our rift with nature and the way we live in these present times is the basis, really, for much of what ails us today. Japanese scientists started asking questions about why does going to nature make us feel so good? And their studies form the scientific basis for the positive effects of nature and taking it in through forest bathing. And they found many things, and so have other scientists around the world who also study the nature effect upon our health and well-being. And some of the things they found include that nature, and when forest bathing in nature, offers overall a decrease in the stress and stress state of modern life, which is great. We all dwell there too often. It offers us a decrease in our sympathetic nervous system response, which is the fight, flight, freeze responses that so many of us that's our daily existence. And that has serious negative impact upon our health. What forest bathing does is increases our parasympathetic nervous system response, which you'll recall is the rest, digest, heal state. And when our parasympathetic nervous system is being activated, it actually lowers our blood pressure, our heart rate. There's a significant decrease in stress hormones, cortisol, amylase, even adrenaline decreases. And then we start to feel calmer and relaxed. In fact, after about 5 minutes of forest bathing, our facial muscles and shoulders begin to relax. And after about 15 minutes, our breathing starts to regulate with our respiration slowing down. Key state of relaxation. You know, you're reaching it when you hit those points. Now, forest bathing increases a lot of great responses as well, tied to the parasympathetic response, and it increases our variable heart rate. So that's the actual space between beats. And that, again, is a sign of relaxation. And it also increases our immune function and our immune response. So it increases some of the natural tumor and virus fighting cells to help our bodies heal. And because the working part of the brain is also being given a break during forest bathing, this is another cool thing that happens, and I experience it myself all the time, is that there's more room for creativity to bubble up. So I tell each of you and everybody who goes on a walk with me that if you are finding yourself stuck, maybe it's a work problem, something at home, you need to find a solution to something, just take it to the woods and let everything go, and then you'll find maybe the answer bubbles up right then and there, or you find a new way to approach a problem. And forest bathing also, some other positive effects are regulation of mood disorders. It actually softens things like anxiety, depression, as well as effects of PTSD, ADHD, and rumination. We find some freedom from those, and that's a good thing. The forest bathing process itself is also designed to make you feel good. It's much like a yoga or a meditation process that helps you drop into a certain space or headspace. And you can understand why participants in studies also, after going through these processes, and if you practice yoga or meditation, you will be able to relate to the fact that people report an improved sense of calm and connectedness, vitality, well-being, and happiness, and a whole host of other effects like improved mood, increased ability to focus. You'll find an accelerated recovery from surgery or illness. Your energy level will increase. Your sense of fun increases. Who doesn't want that? Moments of catharsis, invigoration, makes you feel more vital and more energetic. And just a sense of deep connection to yourself, to your surroundings where you're forest bathing, but also to the larger world. And so when people were self-reporting these things, this is what piqued Japanese scientists' interest. Like, what is behind these healing effects? And we know nature makes us feel good, but they really wanted to know the specifics on why. So forest bathing, again, is not a cardio hike. You're not going to break a sweat. There's no therapy up in the woods. It's not a naturalist hike. But here's what it is and how the structure of a walk works. It is slow going and a slowing down. We go only a short distance, really. Sometimes it's less than half a mile, sometimes 400 feet. It's a deep experience of noticing. And for it to be that, it's also a silent walk. So we're not cross-talking and chit-chatting about things. We are letting each other drop into the moment with nature and just notice what we notice through our senses. Now, when a forest bathing guide, such as me or another guide, leads you on a walk, they follow a process, as I had mentioned. And my process as a guide certified with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guides and Programs is it's prescribed. And the steps and invitations within are done in a certain way and through a certain methodology to actually help your senses open and help you further drop into the experience. And those steps include crossing a threshold into what we call the liminal space. So we're leaving the chaos of our daily lives, entering the woods before we go back to our daily lives. And then I do a sense opening, which is really activating your senses to help you notice more and more along the way on our walks. And from there, I offer a series of invitations. And what those are, they're in the moment, they're prompts, they're invitations so you can lean in or lean out, whatever your comfort level is. Maybe you find your own way, but they're meant to open your senses and connect with nature and see what you can find there. Those depend on, and those, like I said, are crafted in the moment. So if it's a windy day, I might draw our attention to the wind and how it's interacting with nature and try to have us connect with that. You know, maybe there's rain, which is actually my favorite time to be out in the forest because it changes the mood and it just magnifies so many other things in the woods. And the question always on all of these is going to be, what are you noticing? What's nature reflecting back or opening up for you as well? And now these prompts also, they span the gamut of the more than 5 senses. As forest bathing guides, we open the heart sense. And we're talking about senses of interoception and proprioception and how we're moving through space and finding balance and sense of place and sense of character of the land. So it's not just the 5 senses, it goes far beyond. I might also ask you to do things like take off your shoes and walk in the woods, or lay on your back and notice the clouds going by, or maybe hang out with a tree or moss, or maybe rocks or stones. You just think of what they hold, the history they hold, and maybe something will be revealed to you through that. And what does nature share and reflect or open for us? Well, truly, that is between you and nature. As forest bathing guides, you know, we all formally believe that the forest is the therapist. It's not me, it's the forest. That nature provides the healing that we each individually need. So what I need when I go to the woods is not the same as what you need. And nature has a way of picking that up, and it just depends on how open you are to interacting with and receiving from nature. And so my job as the guide really is just to open the doors to all of that, to make it possible for that to happen, for you to have this deep interaction with nature. And it's really just a beautiful thing. And the pattern of the walk structure, the threshold, the invitations, and a closing tea ceremony actually are a part of that structure of the walk, and just important to what you find. Now, the walk structure is a pattern, correct? And the thing is that our brains love to recognize patterns. It's calming and satisfying. Think of watching a series of dominoes falling, or studying an Escher drawing, the staircase that opens to another staircase to another. And those patterns like these, and so many more that are waiting in nature, are really calming to us. Things like day becoming night, the moon moving through cycles, flower petals having patterns, as do their stamens, their fluffy pollen that clings to them, and even the pollinators upon them. I don't know, maybe you can see. No, I can't see that little bee that's in the photo. Maybe you can. And patterns in nature also, so you'll find this is like an endless feedback loop, what happens to us in nature and what happens to our bodies. Patterns in nature help us exist in the parasympathetic state, right? That state of relaxation. And fractal patterns are found in nature, and they are defined as the infinitely self-similar, such as the fern fronds that we're looking at, and the arrangements of petals on a flower, how they come out from the center, a tree's bark, and symmetrical patterns of the tree limb growth, the clouds in the sky, the cracks in the bark or in the ground, spots, stripes, honeycombs. These are all patterns that our brain loves to connect with. Even unpredictable patterns can put us in this parasympathetic state, the restful state. Just think of the wind in the trees, and when you notice that, or cat's paws upon a lake, when the wind comes down and spreads out on the lake. Now, those are not always symmetrical. They don't always happen in a regular pattern, but when you see them happen, you can process them. And they're satisfying because they're visually and aesthetically pleasing, because they have symmetry, they're predictable, and they're easy to process. And they also tell us things about our surroundings and help us learn about them. Repetition is the mother of all learning, but by learning these things, then you start to notice other patterns that occur when certain other patterns are happening. And when we view these fractal patterns, these repeating patterns in nature, what actually happens is that we reduce our stress level by up to 60%. And I just find that amazing. So if you're super stressed out, just look at the clouds, go lay under a tree, look up at its branches. And it's true. I mean, I experience that every time I'm stressed out. I just take it to the woods and I go hang out, and find that I'm in such a deep comfort zone after viewing them. And that's super beneficial to me. And you can find these patterns below on the floor, as in the previous slide, or you can find them above, even out your window for that matter. You can forest bathe looking out a window at home and connect with nature that way. Also, another benefit is that our mirror neurons are activated when we're forest bathing. And what that means is that we can experience the same thing in something we are viewing. Just think of an animal making small motions that you're watching, or the wind in the tree branches, especially when we try to mimic those motions, like picking a tree and just swaying with it in the breeze. It's rather calming. Passively viewing nature's patterns also contributes to increased healing. There's various studies that have shown when patients have a view of nature out their hospital windows, after surgery, they recover more quickly and have less pain, less need for pain medication, and actually fewer post-operative complications. So when you need to go to the hospital, ask for a room with a view. It's good advice. Nature's vast palette also impacts us, and scientific research has shown that things like color can improve our memory. One study examined color and memory and found that multicolor, multimedia presentations are better remembered. And so I'm hoping that's the case with this presentation too. Any guess about what the most calming colors in nature are? Green. The human eye sees green better than any other color on the spectrum because it's at a wavelength. And if you want to know the scientific data, it's 555 nanometers. And that's in the middle of the spectrum, vision spectrum. And our eyes thus can better perceive it and more easily than we can other colors. And then there's blue. According to a UK study, it's the world's favorite color. That's pretty cool. Blue is thought to support calming chemicals in the brain. And as I mentioned before, open creativity. So please, please go back to that kind of daydreaming where you lay on your back and you look at these beautiful clouds and just see what happens, see what comes up and get lost in those moments. One thought about the effects of green and blue that scientists have is that these are the prevalent colors historically and in terms of our evolution on the land. Thus, they remind us of living with nature. For example, through clearings, you could see the wide sky and have a distant view of any predators. And deep in the woods, you would be surrounded by the comfort of a green shelter if you were being chased by a predator. And just notice what senses you feel open when you look at each of these colors: the purple, the yellow, the red, the white, the green. Maybe you've heard also of grounding or earthing, and that's my favorite way to enjoy that is on a thick bed of moss or in a lush mossy path. I love to invite walk participants to do this as an invitation. And grounding is actually a therapy meant to connect you skin to skin to the earth. So with the ground, which helps realign our electrical energy, because as I understand it, our bodies pick up the negatively charged electrons and energy of the earth. And these free electrons help intercept the damaging free radicals in our bodies that you hear a lot about and help us detoxify. And they also kind of balance our energetic state and bring us more of those awesome parasympathetic nervous system response effects. Also, bacteria in the soil. So when we're sticking our feet in the soil or when we're laying down on the soil and touching it, we're getting all the Earth's good negative electron benefits. But bacteria in the soil also can help our immune function by decreasing inflammation and also act as a natural antidepressant by increasing the release of serotonin in parts of the brain that control mood and cognitive function. And those cognitive functions actually include memory and working memory. So things like remembering passwords, which is the bane of my existence, phone numbers, etc. Also helping with our attention, pattern recognition, and our perception, and a whole lot more. Actually, what types of perception would include vision, sound, touch, proprioception, which is the sense of movement, smell, our social perception, touch, and which I already said, and time perception, and so much more. And these influences are why people feel more focused after forest bathing. So go out and try that. And in nature, we can be free of life's chaos for a while, which is perhaps one of my favorite effects of nature. And I like this quote from Eckhart Tolle. When you look at a tree and perceive its stillness, you become still yourself. So I mentioned some of those more than 5 senses, and a few other of those that get reopened include our sense of child's play and wild abandon, which is something so many of us let go as we start adulting. And we lose that sense of magic and the fun of pretending and imagining. But guess what? Time in nature can help you bring those back into your life. Forest bathing can help us drop into the senses that really activate joy by doing things on a whim. It keeps us fresh and flexible and free. Think about building a fort, digging in the dirt, maybe checking out the bugs, and why not? You don't need permission to do that. Although I do find that when you're on a forest bathing walk, or participants on my walk feel much freer to do that as adults because they're in a group and I've said, you need to go do this. I had one group where it was January and it was a full wolf moon walk and we howled at the moon, and nobody wanted to do it by themselves in the woods. But when we were together, it was just crazy fun, and crazy fun, just like deep belly laughing, which it produced, makes us feel wonderfully great and fun, and all these things that lead us to it are pleasing, and pleasure seeking activates the dopamine response in our brains. And you've probably heard it as, the feel good hormone. And what happens when we are experiencing dopamine, this feel good hormone, its effects influence our brain to want more and more. And you can have it without limit in the woods and experience joy. That is so good for body, mind, and soul. And the research tells us all of that too. And it's reciprocal. Time in nature is reciprocal. Reciprocity is about giving and receiving. So we're sharing our joy with other people on the walk. We're sharing our joy in and with nature. And you think of it this way, that when we touch nature, it touches us. And when we tend nature, whether it's gardening or tending to the woods, so too nature tends us and brings us all of the health benefits that I've discussed in terms of our health and well-being. So every time you're in nature, if you want a simple feel good, just find a way to offer reciprocity. Maybe it's opening up garbage. Maybe it's hanging out with a tree and sharing a story. Maybe it's just marveling at the beauty that you see around us. And the trees will give back, right? They consistently offer reciprocity to us and with us and other beings in the forest. So what happens is they inhale our carbon dioxide, for example, and then they offer us oxygen in return. And through their mycorrhizal networks, also underground, they share nutrients, water, warnings with other trees in the forest. And then they also communicate with the other trees through this network, and also, for example, by scents that they emit. Another cool thing when you are practicing reciprocity is leaning into that experience of awe, that strong emotion of wonder and reverence for something that's so vast, it just changes how we see the world and our place in it. Maybe it's something beyond understanding. And that inspires deep curiosity, right? Goosebumps, maybe you feel tingly, maybe it takes your breath away. And it's seeing yourself as part of something bigger, greater, and grander. And researchers call this the small self effect. And nature offers all of those experiences for us in multiple ways. In the forest bathing practice in particular, we call this small self realization the understanding and finding our place in the complex web of interbeing, right? Noticing who or what is there from the human and other than human world. And when we notice those things and we notice the details and we start to experience awe, we might feel less self-important, and it may actually increase kindness and the desire to be more helpful. There's a bunch of research out there on that too. And according to a Berkeley study, experience in awe also does have positive effects on health and well-being, very measurable things. When we go forest bathing, we're going slowly, silently, noticing more and more. And you learn to find that awe is everywhere, whether it's massive or minuscule. So the sense of awe that we experience in the giant or the tiny helps balance our immune and inflammatory responses. And actually, it lowers our pro-inflammatory cytokine response, to speak scientifically. And that's what tells our immune system to kick things up a notch. But sustained high levels of that high notch are associated with things of poorer health, such as diabetes, type 2, arthritis, heart disease, clinical depression, and Alzheimer's, right? All very affected by inflammation. And when we experience awe, wonder, and amazement, it drops one of those cytokine markers and just brings us down a couple notches. So be sure to get that daily dose of awe, because the more positive emotions you have each day, the better you'll feel and be. But forest bathing is also designed to lead you directly to those things. So that's an easy way to find all of that. And when it comes to depression, it's interesting to note that getting out in the woods or nature can become walks of curiosity, which is a positive sense that impacts emotion. The curious explore, which is the opposite of withdrawing and isolating, which we tend to do when we're depressed. And we find awe, but we also find a sense of connection, which is so important, especially right now in these times that we've been through this past year. So seek that out. And you'll notice when we talked about color, the background of this slide is orange, and orange is known as a happy color. And this is just, quote says it all for me in terms of what I find in the forest bathing experience. Now, as part of my walk in non-COVID times, I share tea at the end of the walk. And it's usually a lovely surprise, and we come to it silently as we do all of the other invitations. And if it's permitted on the land, I might forage, find berries, herbs, tree bark, leaves, and brew a tea from that. And the idea is that when we have that tea, we are actually taking in the medicine of the forest in another way. We're incorporating it into our bodies and then incorporating the experience. And as we know, ancient peoples knew that there were healing herbs, that there was true medicine to be found in nature. And some of the things that you can find in that healing are, for example, I brew white pine needle tea. It's one of my favorites. And a cup of that offers almost 4 times more vitamin C than a small cup of orange juice. So if you feel like you're suffering from scurvy in the woods, just drink some pine needle tea. You'll feel all better. But it also has very high levels of vitamin A, which are great for eyesight and immunity. Pine sap itself is an astringent, antiseptic, and antibacterial material. And it serves the tree, but it also serves us. It allows the tree, for example, to seal off wounds and protect and prevent from infection and more damage. And it does the same for us when we apply it to our wounds. Trees also emit things called phytoncides, pines and conifers especially. And that's another medicine of the forest. And those we actually breathe in. It's the scent of the forest. Just think of how it smells when you're deep in a pine woods or a cedar or a fir woods. And those are actually pheromones, or you can call them the essential oils of trees. And they serve as a part of the tree's defense mechanism and help protect the trees. They're antifungal, antibacterial, and extensive research by Japanese scientists have shown that these phytoncides also have an effect on us and our immune functions. In fact, inhaling phytoncides increases our immune function and specifically increases our natural killer cells, which are white blood cells that fight tumors and viruses. So there's some interesting research being done too on the effects of these phytoncides for people with cancer. And I'm excited to see a lot of the outcomes of those. I think are going to be very, very interesting. And just like other aspects of nature, these phytoncides help us relax and find those healing moments in nature. And you can just sit and take those in. Nature is also a social network, and so we embrace that as well on forest bathing walks, and we share our experiences at the end. And the process of that is sort of like taking in tea. We're sharing, we are incorporating other people's experiences into our own, and then we are carrying all of those things away with us into our daily lives. And I like to, after a great walk, a couple days later, I'll think back when I need a moment of peace on just a really fantastic moment I had with nature. And it just takes me back to that moment. And I think about what I was sensing and what I was feeling. So it's instant calm. And another aspect of these shares is that we're practicing active listening, which is we are quiet when someone else is speaking. We're letting them be heard. And there's a lot of value in that for people just wanting and feeling the need to be heard. And it's just validating, and it helps people with esteem. And so there are all these other effects from forest bathing that you can see come up with just time in the woods. There's also the natural light and vitamin D. The tiny light at the end of the day is my favorite. That activates vitamin D in our bodies, which activates melatonin, which helps us sleep. You know, that explains why after a day outside, you sleep like a log at night. And you can forest bathe anywhere, any place. I like to go to my neighbor's backyard when I can't get out to the woods. What would I ask you about forest bathing here? I would ask you how many different colors you're noticing and how that makes you feel, or what else it's bringing to you, what's being revealed. Water, birdsong, and wind in the trees are the most calming sounds in nature. So seek them out and pause when you find them to just take them in and be with them and notice. I like when I go to nature, and we do this on our forest walks, is we find a favorite tree or a plant or flower and we just be with it. A great thing to do if you find one or have one in your yard is to visit it every season and notice how it changes and how its environment changes. I like to visit mine every day and cultivate a relationship with it and the land around it and just deepen my connection to nature. And when you do this, notice your tree from every direction and experience it with all of your senses. Smell it, touch it, feel it, taste it if you know it's safe. And just really dig in. And you will find when you do that, as Mary Oliver said in one of her poems, she's just passed away last year, and she is the poet laureate of the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guides, wrote that once you begin to notice, you notice more and more. And so it goes, the more you notice, the more and more you come to know the place, the more and more you become in relationship with it and the beings that are there, and the more and more you benefit. And now we're going to experience that a bit, experience a forest bathing walk digitally. And it's about an 8-minute video. And we will just drop into our senses and notice what you notice. And it's just a simple taste of how a forest bathing experience begins. And I invite you to keep your eyes open, and you can watch what's before you, or close your eye and activate your imagination in your child's mind's eye, and like go to a forest or create a forest that is the most wonderful place to be that you can imagine. And as we're doing that, notice which sense is being most activated, and perhaps what's being activated in you. Notice that you are leaving your daily life and entering a new space. Pause and acknowledge. Set a threshold for yourself. And in that pause, set an intention for your walk, or set something aside. Maybe asking nature to support it for you. You notice yourself moving into and through this land. What are you feeling? Who or what are you noticing in this place? What is it like being here now? And what are you sensing? And now pause in a comfortable place and take a deep breath in and release it. And take another deep breath in. And as you release it, imagine that you're sending this breath down through your core, down through your legs, noticing your feet touching the ground. And take another deep breath and send that breath down through your feet, from your legs, or maybe it's your trunk, all the way down into the earth, until it meets the root systems of the other trees that surround you in these woods. And notice that connection. Knowing that trees communicate through their root systems. What is it you are receiving from the network? Perhaps it's nutrition, energy, water, or something else. And what is it you are sharing with the root systems in this forest? And taking a deep breath in, all the way, drawing it all the way back up from the rootlets that have sprung from your feet. Drawing what you've received up through your trunk and into your core, and even raising your arms up and reaching your crown to the sky. And slowly dropping your limbs to release, and relax in a comfortable place. And now, take a breath. And another deep breath in. And on the inhale, notice what's filling your body. And exhale. And take another deep breath in, noticing the air in your lungs moving throughout your body. And noticing and realizing you are drawing in the oxygen from the trees and the forest around you. And take a deep breath in again and hold it. And slowly release, sharing your carbon dioxide with the trees. And continue breathing at your own pace. In and pause, and out and pause. Sharing and receiving gifts with the tree. Breathing in reciprocity with the trees. When you inhale, imagine a tree exhales. When you exhale, imagine a tree inhales. And I invite you to notice now if there's any kind of a breeze, what the air feels like upon your body. What is that sensation? Where is it present? Where is it absent? And now draw in a deep breath through your nose. And I'm wondering, is there a scent? How would you describe it? And draw a deep breath in across your tongue. And just roll it around like it's a fine wine. I wonder, is there a flavor? How is the air tasting to you? And now, closing your eyes if you feel comfortable. Listening for who or what is here with us. Listen out one ear, and then the other. Who's near? Who's far? And open your eyes and look at the pond before you, noticing what's in motion. And perhaps noticing what is set in motion for you. Noticing the details, the subtle moments, the subtle movements, and the patterns. And now, turn around and find a tree that you are drawn to. It's in your body sense, in your radar, in your heart sense. And introduce yourself in some way. Maybe connect and touch with it and say hello. Share a name. Ask a question. And then just behold your tree. What are you noticing? And I wonder, what is being exchanged? What are you finding with your tree? And now I invite you to imagine we are all sitting in a circle with you in your woods to share briefly with each other in just 3 words in the Zoom chat. And we are all wondering what sits in you now. So I invite all of you to experience that in person by joining us for a forest bathing walk. And that'll be Saturday, May 1st from 9 to 12. And we're going to determine the location the day of, or actually the week of, just based on the weather conditions that week and trail conditions that it may have created. Just expect it'll be moderate trail difficulty. So you have to be able to amble and maneuver on the trails of your own accord. Bring a walking stick, whatever else you need to be comfortable. Advanced registration is required. It's $18 a person and open to all ages. And thank you to the Madison Senior Center for sponsoring this walk. And to register, you can go to madisonseniorcenter.org. You can call. You can also go to the events link on the website or email to find out more and to register. And your guides will be myself, Kate from Shinrin-yoku Madison, and my favorite forest pal, Maura Farrell of hikeandhealwellness.com. And please feel free to reach out to us and visit our own sites for future walks that we will be planning throughout late spring and summer. But I hope to see you on May 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, for that wonderful information on forest bathing. It's fun to learn something new, and with spring here, now would be a great time to try this. And in case you missed how to sign up for the May 1st walk, information will be emailed to everyone that registered for this webinar. A friendly reminder that Q&A will be at the conclusion of the program. So if you have questions during the presentation, please submit them by using the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. Now let's move on to the next speaker, Missy VanLanduyt. Missy is the Recreation Partnership Section Chief for the Wisconsin State Park System. She has been with the DNR for nearly 10 years, all within the Parks program. Missy grew up in northern Wisconsin on a dairy farm and has lived in the Madison area for 20 years. She lives here with her husband and 2 young daughters. Today, Missy will share her knowledge of what our wonderful state parks have to offer. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Missy.
Great. Thank you for having me. Well, now that everyone is nice and relaxed and they're enjoying the sunshine that's kind of peering in from their windows in this April temperatures today, now I want you to liven up a little bit. Consider getting out your paper and pen because you're going to want to take some notes. We are going to move through our state park system. And first, I wanted just to share with you a little bit about what our initiative is, Out We Go. Out We Go is Out We All Go, Out Wisconsin Goes, but it's a statewide initiative encouraging people to improve their mind, body, and community wellness by getting outdoors and active in Wisconsin state parks, forests, and trails. Now, this has really become so prevalent over the last year, especially with us being in a pandemic. And as we just learned from Kate, there are incredible healing powers that nature can give us. So feeling good in the great outdoors is something that we have been sharing for the last couple of years. But again, something that when we couldn't go anywhere else, but we really wanted to get outside with our family, we wanted to be active, we wanted some solitude, but in nature instead of inside those 4 walls, nature has become that place that we can go. You know, last year we saw a significant increase in visitation to the state park system. We typically see about 17 million visits a year, and we saw almost 21.5 million visits, which is up 22% on previous years. Camping has increased. Advanced registration for camping has increased. And overall, this year, we're on track to see even a bigger increase of 25% or potentially greater. So this is the time to get outdoors. But what I love about it so much is that I'm going to show you today all the different places that if you're not still comfortable with the crowds, you want to find those little hidden gems. I'm going to share those with you today. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about our system. The Wisconsin State Park System is comprised of over 307,000 acres of active recreation area, which may not seem like a lot when you think about the few million acres that we have of public land in the state, but it comprises 49 state parks. Write that note down. If you're wondering how many state parks there actually are, there's 49 state parks. There's 8 river and resource areas that we manage, the recreation on 15 state forests, 44 linear state trails, which are our rail trails, 9 state recreation areas. In addition to that, there's over 5,000 campsites just on state parkland and over 6,500 when you include the forests and trails. There's over 1,500 buildings and more than 500 boat access sites. So there is a lot of area for you to enjoy across the state. So where will you out we go? So hopefully if you've needed a little stretch break, you've gotten a new beverage, you've gotten your paper and pen, you're ready to go. So let's jump right in. Well, I guess, Kate, there's a reason why I love to listen to the water hitting the shore every time I hear that video. So we're going to move across the state. We're going to start with shoreline properties on the Great Lakes. And one of the things, to pay attention to today is, again, hidden gems. We really want to share with you all of those places that you can go that not a lot of other people go or know about. So that's what you're going to see today. It's not going to be about Peninsula or Devil's Lake or even Colarandre or Willow. You're going to see these really unique places that make it a hidden gem, whether it's the unique natural feature, the recreation opportunity, or maybe even just the time of day, week, or year that you go. We're going to start out with Rock Island State Park, which maybe some of you are thinking my background is actually somewhere in the Caribbean. It's actually Rock Island. This is one of my favorite properties. I've actually been to all of them except for one within our system, and Rock Island is definitely up there for me. There's so much that makes this a hidden gem. But to me, it really is access to the shoreline and the history at the property. This is the Thorderson boat shed or boathouse, which is a historic structure that we're hopefully going to be restoring in the next few years, but it is open to the public for access. I'll warn you, there are a lot of birds and bats in the boathouse, so if you do stick your head in there, you might get a little drippings on you, but it's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful place to see. In addition to the Thorderson boat shed is actually the Potawatomi Lighthouse, which was fully restored by the Friends group a few years ago and is open for tours and will be, once Rock Island reopens this summer, will be open for tours. But lastly, what I love so much about Rock Island is the beach. You get off the boat there, you go about a half mile across the island, and you have access to this gorgeous beach. And I'll tell you, no matter what time of year you go, you're still nearly likely to be the only people there. And with hundreds of miles around the entire island of shoreline, there's so much to explore. So if you bring your kayak or you just come for the day, or maybe you're camping for a week, definitely come and enjoy the beach. Point Beach State Forest on the eastern side of the state, located right outside Two Rivers, has a few little hidden gems for me. First of all, you see this great lighthouse, which is actually still operated by the Coast Guard. And if you're an active member or a veteran service member of the Coast Guard, you can actually stay in this lighthouse. So that's kind of neat, and it's right adjacent to the property. The other things I love about this is access to the beach. This is a wonderful family property. It's got a small, very bikeable campground, close walking access to the beach, a great nature center, and actually this property is tucked in a little bit, and so you don't see a lot of the wave or wind action that you do at some of the other coastal properties. I think lastly, if you are really looking to get off the grid, Point Beach is a great one because there's very little to no cell service there. So maybe not a place to do your remote work if you're looking to do that while camping, but a wonderful, great place to go to escape with the family. Lakeshore State Park, located in Milwaukee, which I'm sure you're asking yourself, how can this be a hidden gem? It's right on the lakeshore. There's a few things to me that make this a hidden gem, and it's more about what you see when you're there and the timing of when you go. Lakeshore is actually completely man-made, built on fill, and it's an island. But a few things that make it a hidden gem. You can see in this photo, there's a marina. So going there during Summerfest or other music festivals, you can rent a slip in the marina and hear the music loud and clear, which is great. The other thing that I love about Lakeshore is its incredibly scenic and accessible prairies. There has been a ton of work over the last 10 plus years that has invested into the prairies here. And when I was choosing photos, even for this presentation, they're actually categorized by week because they change so often and are so beautiful at all times of the year. So definitely get there and enjoy the prairies. And lastly, it gives you incredible views of both the lake and the Milwaukee skyline. So if you are visiting Milwaukee, maybe for the day or overnight, definitely check out Lakeshore in the evening. Big Bay, one of our treasures, another island property located on Madison Island, our only state park on one of the Apostle Islands. You need one ferry to get there, right outside of Bayfield. Again, a spectacular property to get to and worth the trip, whether you're camping or going there for the day. There's a few things here that make this a hidden gem. One I love is like, especially this, when you go there in the fall, you may think, oh, it's going to be cold. I'm not sure I want to go and enjoy the beach. It's actually just north enough that even if you get good sunshine, it feels like it's 80 degrees when it might be 40. So I encourage you to go there and explore it even in the fall. Another really neat thing about this is, like many of the other Apostle Islands, there's actually an inland lake on Big Bay as well, right within the park that you can have kayak access to, and there's great fishing. It's surrounded by dunes, and it gives you a whole other perspective of Big Bay. But the thing I love most about Big Bay is its accessibility to the beach. There's so many properties that we have, and we do have a lot of accessible opportunities, but this was our first. It's a fully accessible boardwalk feature that goes all the way from the parking lot down to the beach, and just an incredible view. So be sure to get out to Big Bay. It's definitely worth the time. Newport State Park, while so many people actually went south this year while we're re-engaging in society, they went south for spring break. My family and I actually went to Newport. And Newport is definitely one of my favorite parks, located in Door County for a few reasons. This is a great place if you did want to try forest bathing. What I love about this is such as the variety in landscape at Newport. It gives you the pine plantations, beach plantations, deciduous forests. You get access to both Lake Michigan and Europe Lake, and you get an incredible variety of trails both in the woods, along the lake, and on the beach. So this is definitely a wonderful place to check out. It's also our only dark sky park in Wisconsin and one of only 18 fully dark sky park properties in the nation. So certainly a wonderful place for you to go to look at the night sky and to actually see the Milky Way with the naked eye. And lastly, there are tons of campsites. I think basically all the campsites have almost direct water access. This is one that you go right next to Europe Bay Lake. And this is a great little tucked in, wonderful little campsite. They're all like this. You hike into all of them. Each one has their own restroom, picnic table, bench that you can explore and fire ring. And they're all along the Europe Bay Trail, which is wonderful. It's a 7-mile loop trail, but you can do about 3.5 on the northern end and 3.5 on the southern end. So a wonderful trail to check out there. Moving into our forest properties. These are some of my favorites because to me, our forest properties, many of us think of them for forest production or for more remote trails, not as much designated recreation area. But to me, forests, because of the sheer size of them, can be some of our most complete recreation areas. First and foremost, going to the Kettle Moraine State Forest, the northern unit, primarily located in Washington County. So much to offer at the Kettle Moraine State Forest Northern Unit, but what I think many people forget is actually we have the Greenbush Recreation Area, which is comprised of a lot of miles of mountain bike trail. So if you're interested in mountain biking, this is a wonderful place to go. The other thing I love about the Northern Unit too is the sheer number of miles of Ice Age trail that go through there, and they also have incredible ski trails in the winter. The southern unit of the Kettle Moraine State Forest, which is located just outside Eagle, Wisconsin. The neat thing that I love about the southern unit is you think forest, you don't think state natural area. And the southern unit is actually comprised of 9 state natural areas within the forest. One of the natural areas actually has 16 individual units within it. So while you do get that forest experience, you also get beautiful prairies that we have tons of partner groups that invest so much time and effort in maintaining. Low Lake, I bet many of you have not heard of Low Lake, the Kettle Moraine State Forest. It's actually located near Pike Lake outside of Hartford, if you've heard of that. Low Lake in and of itself is a beautiful hidden gem. It's a virtually undeveloped property, but has incredible access to Low Lake and the creeks and rivers around there. So if you're looking for somewhere for solitude, you want to experience the migratory birds, you want to check out the river systems, Low Lake is the place to do it. It's got a really nice little launch and parking area there. And randomly enough, actually has equestrian trails as well. So a couple of different recreation opportunities that you can experience, and you're virtually guaranteed to run into very few people at Low Lake. Lapham Peak, which is located, it's another unit of the Southern Forest located just by Delafield, Wisconsin. Now, many people know of Lapham Peak because of the man-made ski trails there. And it's one of the only places, especially lately, where we can experience snow when other places don't have them is Southern Wisconsin. So many people train for the Birkie here. But what I love, and to me, the hidden gem at Lapham Peak is actually this beautiful structure, the Houseman Nature House. It encompasses several areas of nature center within it, but it also has multi-purpose rentable space, whether it's youth group outings, knitting club, book club, weddings, baby showers, you name it. There's actually a full catering kitchen in here and beautiful historically renovated space in this building. It also has wonderful views of the prairie and the trails and is just down the hill from the tower as well. So the next time you get out to Lapham Peak, if you're hiking or biking or otherwise, go ahead and check out the Houseman Nature's House. The Northern Highland American Legion State Forest, located across many counties in the north by Minocqua and Woodruff. To me, this is the property I probably visit most often with my family or otherwise. It's such a complete property. I love to go here to snowmobile in the winter and ski. I actually went fat biking here this year. I love to hike, bike, swim with my family, go fishing. So there's a few hidden gems that I wanted to share with you, but the Northern Highland American Legion State Forest actually is over 236,000 acres in and of itself and has more than 900 lakes. So a couple of things that I love about this property. One is if you go to the Trout Lake headquarters, just behind the headquarters, you'll see a little parking lot. That parking lot leads you to a beach. Not many people know about it, which is why you're lucky enough to be on the Hidden Gems presentation. So check that part out. Another place that I love to go is White Sand Lake. There's a beautiful little beach there that was part of an abandoned Girl Scout camp. And lastly, if you're into biking, the Heart of the Vilas Bike Trail is maintained by all the communities that it goes through, but a majority of it is actually on state forest land. It's 52 miles of paved bike trail that follows the topography of the forest and goes through many great communities. So I would encourage you to spend the weekend, whether you're camping or staying otherwise, but there's a ton that the forest has to offer all year round. State trails. State trails to me, we live in Wisconsin. Maybe we don't always get out and are not able to experience all the beautiful variety of landscapes that Wisconsin has to offer. But our state trails give us that opportunity. We can go from beautiful farmland to urban areas to the driftless area to sand country, all on our state trails. And I bet you didn't know, with a little road route connections, you can actually go from Superior down through Hudson, La Crosse, over to Madison, Milwaukee, and up through Green Bay on our state trail system. While they're not all directly connected, you can experience road routes in between, but we have quite a network of trail system with over 1,700 miles of rail trail. And that doesn't include all the trails that you find on properties. This is my daughter actually from last year on Military Ridge, right on the edge of the driftless area outside Blue Mountain State Park in the southern part of the state. It's a perfect place to take your family to explore natural landscapes. One of the hidden gems, which you can see by this picture, maybe isn't becoming quite such a hidden gem, but I actually love to go to the Elroy-Sparta State Trail in July, primarily to check out the tunnels, because you get such a temperature difference when you get into the tunnels and they're dripping wet. So maybe don't go during the spring when you might get cold, or in the fall, but it's a great place to check out in July. I would also recommend you bring a headlamp and a bike lock, just in case you didn't want to take your bike through the tunnels. Moving into our recreation and natural areas. Parfrey's Glen, and if you haven't heard, Parfrey's Glen is now open as of a couple of weeks ago. There's so much to love about our state natural areas. They're more undeveloped than our state parks and forests are, but they still offer so much incredible beauty. Parfrey's Glen has a very short hike in to where you get to the glen, and you can actually feel the temperature reduction as you're going. That's my daughter, if you can zoom in on her quirky little face from a few years ago. My kids love going to Parfrey's Glen, and actually a few years ago, this was wiped out in a flood, and we restored the trail mostly up into the glen. And if you can actually scamper on some of the rocks to get into the glen and experience the waterfalls. It's a nice short hike. It's a great place to go. This is one that springtime is great, fall is beautiful. I would highly encourage you to go during the week. But one of the other little tidbits here is that this is actually a great little fishery in here, which many people don't realize. Gibraltar Rock, for those of you in the southern part of the state, you're probably like, Gibraltar Rock's not a hidden gem. It's near Lodi. It overlooks Lake Wisconsin. It's about 300 feet above the river basin there, and you get spectacular views of the driftless area. But to me, what makes this, a few things that can make this a hidden gem. Go during sunrise or during sunset. So many people go during that middle part of the day, which you'll get extensive views, not only of the driftless area, but of eagles and turkey vultures and all kinds of birds. But to me, going there during sunrise or sunset makes it a magical experience. This is one of the properties that I go to every season because it gives you such different and spectacular views of the landscape all year round. Lastly, while not as eco-friendly on Earth Day, if you are meeting a friend out there and you're taking two vehicles anyway, this is a beautiful segment of the Ice Age Trail. And there are two separate parking lots to park in. So if you can start at the base of Gibraltar Rock and have one car at the other end, you can actually see a wide variety of landscapes and even more views than just going up to the peak and back down. So again, check this one out during a different time to make it really a nice hidden gem. Richard Bong State Natural Area. For those of us that work in the state park system, we actually think of this maybe not as much of a hidden gem, but more of putting 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. But I think that's what makes it special. There's so much here to see and do other than camping and hiking. This, for example, is our Nature Play Classroom. The Bong Naturalist Association actually developed a Nature Play Classroom in which you can touch and explore everything. So often we go to places that we have to learn, but by a distance, and we can't actually engage in it. And even as grown-ups, we still want to touch, feel, explore things. And this Nature Play Classroom is accessible and open to do that. Some other things that I love here, a lot of people bike this. This actually was going to be an airline field before it was developed, and so it's pretty flat, accessible area to bike. But last, we actually have a special youth zone at Richard Bong. So maybe if you don't participate in rocketry or dog trialing, you can actually still go watch it. We actually have areas where people can sign up and reserve the space and test out their own home rockets in a safe way. So if you're there for a day visit or camping, go check out the special use zone and see what's going on. Now, who doesn't like lakes and waterfalls? I think those are all of our favorite things. First, I would say we generally visit our lakes in the summer and our waterfalls in the fall, but springtime is a great time to go visit lakes and waterfalls. This is Madison State Park, located in Douglas County off Highway 35, just south of Superior. When I was going through my photos, despite me being in the Madison area and Madison being about 5.5 hours away, I have the most photos of Madison State Park. This is definitely one of my favorites. This is Big Manitou Falls. It's our highest waterfall in Wisconsin and 4th highest east of the Rockies. But everyone goes there for the waterfalls. What people don't go there for is this beautiful lake and beach. And as you can see, there's a lot of benches in the background. Madison State Park was 100 years old last year. And when it was originally developed, it was developed because it was one of the very few inland lakes outside of Lake Superior in Douglas County where people could go and take their families and enjoy that small body of water experience. The other thing that I love about this is when you go there, if you're going there for the waterfalls, don't just get out and enjoy those. Take time for the beach or the trails. The trails here again were wiped out in the 2018 Father's Day flood. We just spent about $1.5 million restoring trails and historic bridges at this property that were wiped out in that flood. So I highly encourage you to take a loop around, check out the scenic landscape, enjoy those historic bridges, and enjoy the trails in addition to the waterfalls at Madison. Amnicon State Park is actually just east of Madison off Highway 2, right outside of Superior. And this is the view that people go for of the Horton Bridge. And this is actually taken from a selfie stand from the Department of Tourism. So this is what you see online. But to me, there's two things here that make this a hidden gem. Like Kate was saying, and you're immersing yourself in the natural landscape, what I love about this property is that you can get up close and personal with the waterfalls. You can swim in them, you can perch yourself on the edge of the rock. There's a lot of seating areas where if you want that sound to just drown out everything else, you want to immerse yourself in that natural landscape and relax, this is the property to do it. Come here with a book, a journal, just your thoughts, and be able to relax within nature. The other thing that people, as they're passing through, they go to this property, they forget that there's actually a campground here. There's a small rustic campground with no electrical sites. But the nice thing is you can hear the rushing waterfalls from your campsite. So just imagine what that would feel like to have your tent or your small camper, the fire's roaring, your feet are up, you've got a good book, and all you can hear in the background is the roaring falls. Copper Falls State Park. This is located by Mellon, Wisconsin, just north central in the part of the state and just south of Ashland. Again, a wonderful property. This actually became quite popular during the pandemic as a destination for people that weren't traveling out of state. This property gives you wonderful opportunities for trails and waterfalls, which is why everyone goes, especially in September and October. But to me, the hidden gems here are actually the lake and the trails. So Loon Lake is actually here. The Friends group rents out canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddle boards, and it actually has excellent fishing as well. And what many people don't realize is the North Country Trail, National Scenic Trail, goes right through Copper Falls. So if you want to get off the beaten path and not take the traditional Doughboy Nature Trail, there are miles and miles of other trails at Copper Falls State Park that you can enjoy. Mirror Lake State Park, I bet many of you have been to Mirror Lake and have enjoyed that. If you're looking for a great alternative to Devil's Lake, Mirror Lake is the place to go. We know, and it's no secret, Devil's Lake gets very busy during the summer, so I tend to visit Mirror Lake with my family for a couple of reasons. One, the lake is an easy, accessible, beautiful lake. I love the fact that if you don't have your own boat, you can actually rent paddle boards, stand-up paddle boards, canoes, kayaks, and pontoons for this small lake. And what's really neat about this and unique is they actually rent kid kayaks as well. The first time I took my kids, they were 4 and 6. My 4-year-old was tethered to me. This was my 6-year-old at the time, and we just enjoyed the lake so much and had such an incredible time. It's very consumable for young kids. And lastly, if you're not aware, it's adjacent to Ishnala. So you can always come and enjoy the property, walk over, get yourself an appetizer or a beverage, and come back and enjoy more of the state park. Straight Lake State Park is one of my favorites. It's actually in northwest Wisconsin, outside Luck or St. Croix Falls. It's one of our most newly developed parks, but I used developed kind of loosely. It's got about 10 rustic hike-in campsites, a small little fishing pier, and a kayak launch. There's 2 lakes here, Straight Lake and Rainbow Lake, and it's incredibly quiet and peaceful. The lake is gorgeous. One of my first memories here before it was developed, I was kayaking on the lake in the fall when the water was warmer than the air, so the steam was rising up, the sun was going down, and there was an eagle flying into the island in the middle of the property. So just a wonderful, peaceful place. This is actually a view from one of the campsites. So you get glorious water views as well. And for those of you that know about the Ice Age Trail, many people say this is one of the most beautiful segments of Ice Age Trail going through Straight Lake State Park. Governor Thompson State Park, located in Crivets in northeast Wisconsin. This in and of itself is a hidden gem. I often talk to the property manager, and we always can never seem to know why. This property actually has some of the lowest visitation of many of our properties. I'm not sure whether that's because of its proximity to highways or otherwise, but this is an incredibly beautiful property. Again, fairly newly developed. It's got a brand new campground and toilet shower facilities. But in and of itself, it's a hidden gem. It's a great place to go any year round. You're going to find quiet, picturesque trails, whether that's groomed ski trails, hunter access trails, or hiking trails during the summer. It's actually on 3 bodies of water. It's on a flowage, and it's adjacent to the Governor Earl Peshtigo River State Forest. So lots of opportunity. Another thing that makes this a hidden gem is actually many people go here for turkey hunting and deer hunting in the fall. So if you're into hunting and you're looking for public land, Governor Thompson is a great place to go. Moving lastly into our river properties. These are always some of my favorites because you get such a variety and a big picture view of the properties, and we have many across the state. Moving right into Nelson Dewey State Park in the far southwest part of the state near Cassville and across the river from Prairie du Chien. This is a great property year round. I think so many people go here for the solitude of the camping, which is wonderful. Most of the camping is actually 500 feet above the Mississippi River. But 2 things that make this a hidden gem, first and foremost, are its access to history. This is named after our first governor, and the governor's mansion is actually adjacent to the property, as well as Stonefield Village, which is operated by the Wisconsin Historical Society and open for tours. So if you're a history buff, this is a great place to go to explore areas adjacent to the park. And next, what I love, if you're up for a little bit of adventure, this is a wonderful place, as you can see from this campsite, to actually go in January. So the road isn't plowed, so if there is snow, it's a little bit of a trek up the hill, but it's a good workout. It's a great place for eagle watching if you're looking for that in January, February timeframe. And many times the local communities will actually break holes in the ice to encourage the eagles and give them more access to fish. So you, at times during the winter, can see hundreds of eagles right along the river from Nelson Dewey State Park. Its sister property, Wyalusing, again, another place I think that's well known for its views of both the confluence of the Mississippi and the Wisconsin rivers, 500 feet above the river bottom. People go here for camping, but there's so many hidden gems to this property. Hiking is one of them. There's actually a boat launch here operated by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, so you can kayak the backwaters of the Mississippi. In addition to that, this is known for stargazing. There's actually a conservatory here with telescopes there, and the Friends group and the Stargazer group actually bring and mount large telescopes outside the observatory for night sky viewing. So wonderful if you want to do that. And lastly, this property is rich in Native American history. And I want to check my notes to make sure I always get it right. At one point before the state had acquired this property, there were 107 visible burial mounds. Now, due to agricultural activities, we can now still see 64 of those, including 3 bear and 2 deer formations. So, and a lot of these are interpreted on site and encompass over a mile of burial mounds. So if you're interested in the history, you know, between Nelson Dewey and Wyalusing, these are very rich. Bruny Island State Park is one of my favorites, located outside Cornell, Wisconsin, kind of near Eau Claire. This is great for a lot of reasons. Many people go here because it's got 2 rivers, both the Fisher River and the Chippewa River. So you can actually camp and have water access. Many people don't realize that. Another great thing about this property is they have a beautiful beach. So if you're looking for beach in that central Wisconsin area, a lovely public beach. They also do boat rentals here as well. But to me, one of the hidden gems that many people don't realize is actually adjacent to and connecting Bruny Island and Lake Wissota State Parks in the area is the Old Abe State Trail. So again, another complete property where if you're interested in swimming, fishing, hiking, and biking, this is a great place that you can check out Bruny Island, the Old Abe State Trail, and Lake Wissota State Park. The Flambeau River State Forest, located in the north central part of the state. The river says it all. While this property is known for ATV and snowmobile trails as well, to me the river is such a unique experience. What's different about this is actually you can kayak or canoe the river, fishing, anything you want to do on the river, and then the campsites are first come, first serve. So you kayak or paddle down the river, check out whether there's an available campsite. If there's not, you move on down the river till the next one. So I think that's such a neat experience with the river. But what we added last year, which has never been open to the public, is this yurt, which is primarily used in the fall for hunting, but is available all year round for people to rent. We don't have a lot of lodging in state parks, and this one's actually on the state forest. So we have a brand new yurt that once we get post-pandemic will be open for the public to be able to rent. The Brule River State Forest is north central Wisconsin. Maybe that star is not quite right. It's actually kind of in between Amnicon and Madison and up in that area, and you can do all those properties at once. The Brule River is, without a doubt, one of the greatest rivers, I think, in the state. If you have the Paddling Northern Wisconsin book, you can actually view all the different segments of it. But one of my favorite places to go is right here where the Brule River meets Lake Superior. And if you look at the top of this picture, you can actually see that darker line. That's actually the river flowing right into Lake Superior. There's a lot of different access points, too, along the river where you can see the ledges, you can see the rapids, you can get access for fishing. It's a wonderful trout fishery, but there's also a ton of different outfitters around here if you don't have your own boat to be able to paddle. And interestingly, this river drops 418 feet in elevation as it drops down to Lake Superior. And lastly, for the Brule, it's known for skiing. They actually have what's called the After Hours Ski Trail with lit portions of the trail. It's about 17 miles or 27 kilometers of groomed ski trail in the northwest part of the state. I will admit Perot is one of my most loved and most feared properties. You can imagine with it being just north of La Crosse, right on the bluffs near the Trempealeau and Mississippi rivers, you get snakes. So just be prepared when you go. You get some water snakes, you get some rattlesnakes, but they're used to people, so you can just move along your way. But what I love so much about this property is you can get views 500 feet above the river, and you can paddle the backwaters. You can actually rent kayaks from the Nature Center and paddle the backwaters of the Trempealeau River. Or you can hike up Brady's Bluff and get incredible views up and down the Mississippi River, including the locks down to the south. So this is a great property where you can have many hiking opportunities, camping. There's lots of little prairies and things here too, but you get such a beautiful variety of river views by going to Perot State Park. This is another one where we've missed it for this year, but put it on your bucket list for next year. Hike to Brady's Bluff in late March, early April for migratory birds. This property is known for that. Willow River State Park is actually my home park. I grew up in River Falls, Wisconsin, in the northwest part of the state, right outside Hudson. And everyone goes here for the falls. And this is actually our #2 visited property, but it has its own hidden gems. There's a few things that I like about Willow River. One is it's actually a great fishery. We recently put in a new dam, and we put in temperature controls that would allow cooler water to go downstream in the river. And we put in a ton of new fish cribs and tree drops and restocked the lake. So it's an excellent fishery both in the summer and for ice fishing in the winter. And we're actually working with our fisheries program with that temperature gradient to increase the trout fishery from a class 3 to a class 2 trout fishery. And lastly, there's a newer trail, newer in the last few years, called the Nelson Farm Trail that goes on kind of the opposite side of the property from all the activity and loops you around a whole different area of the park and brings you to the top portion of the falls. So you get an opportunity to see areas that most people don't actually get to. Well, thank you all for going on this journey with me around the state. I wanted to just draw your attention. If you have questions or looking for more resources, check out our webpage, dnr.wi.gov. Parks is right there on the main page. You can search out our friends group, volunteer opportunities, employment opportunities, and we're actually launching next week a brand new map where you can search by activity. So lots of different resources on there. We're actually all over social media as well: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you name it. So feel free to go and check out our webpage for all kinds of resources. So thank you all for having me today, and I hope we've inspired you to out we go.
Thank you, Missy, for that wonderful presentation. I know many of us are excited to visit some of the places you talked about. I know I am. Now we have a few minutes for Q&A. Kate, would you like to go first and answer a question or two?
Yeah, sure. One of the questions that came in, and actually this is something I get asked every single walk I go on, and it is from Christine, and it asks, when forest bathing, do you have any thoughts on balancing a sensory experience while protecting from ticks? Yes, I do. I do recommend bug spray. I usually cover myself in DEET because I'm in the woods so much. I hate DEET. I hate wearing it, but it's necessary for me because I am off in the woods and sometimes off trail. And my dog just was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and so then I got tested because she sleeps in our beds and, hangs out on the couches with us. I do not have it, but I've met several people on walks who do, and it can be so hard. And so I just recommend you do whatever you can to protect yourself. There are some great natural repellents that I've been finding work out there. And I can post some of those on my website, actually, if you want more details, but also just wear light colored clothing. I always wear long pants. I tuck them into light colored socks. I wear closed shoes, long sleeve shirts that are light colored. I wear a hat, sometimes like a neck gaiter or a scarf. And when you get home, take all that stuff off. I throw it in the dryer for about 20 minutes. That'll kill ticks. And then hop yourself in the shower and use a washcloth and just, scrub everywhere. They like little crevices and armpits and elsewhere, so check there too. But it's really about preparing in advance, and then when you come home, just take a shower right away, and that should help. It takes about 24 hours before they actually latch on. So yeah, that's my recommendation on tick management. And also there's another question asking myself and Missy if there are any ways to incorporate knowledge of the Great Lakes and areas, history, and also ancestry. And I know the state parks does a great job of this. Also forest bathing, any guide, especially trained guides who have a certain format, but others who are conscientious about the land, which we all are as guides, we acknowledge and introduce the history of the land and who the first persons were on that land, and share gratitude for the tending, for what they may have experienced, and acknowledge that this was their land originally, and it should be acknowledged, and we should learn and understand their histories. And that's a great way of getting to know the sense of place and culture and heritage, and also we'll do some cultural restoration and repair. Missy, I don't know if you want to talk now about the state parks and efforts in terms of those things.
Sure. We actually do quite a bit of interpretation at the properties, and I have personal experience with all of these properties, and the history and elements are some of it that I soak in. With only 40 minutes, I wish I could include a lot more of that. And if you could see all my notes pages, you'd see that we do that a lot through our education programming and interpretation on the property as well. And our property manager is actually well versed in this, and it's one thing that we're working on documenting as well, is kind of all different types of history at these lands. So great point, Kate. There's a couple other questions I can jump into pretty quickly. One of them is, what is the DNR webpage? dnr.wi.gov. So that's hopefully a simple one. The question about the 52-mile paved trail, that is in the Northern Highland American Legion, and it's called the Heart of Vilas Trail. And you can Google that. Heart of Vilas Trail has its very own webpage. And the couple areas at the Northern Highlands that I mentioned was Trout Lake, so right behind the Trout Lake headquarters, and White Sand Lake in White Sand Bay. So if you're up in that area or you look that up, you'll be able to see the public access roads that go around that. And lastly, many folks are always asking, I give these presentations a few times during the year, many people are always wondering if they could get a handout. Well, lucky for you, we are developing a handout. It probably won't be ready until maybe Memorial Day or early June, where all of these different hidden gems will be included in a graphic and a narrative, plus hidden gems for all the other properties that we talked about or didn't talk about. So many properties out there. In my opinion, like I said, I've been to all of them but one. To me, they each have their own little special piece or hidden gem. So we will be sharing that if you check out our webpage. Hopefully it's coming out over social media and other methods too, so check back. But there's tons of resources on the webpage that get you to all of these different trails and access areas.
Do we have time for a few more questions? One more?
Let's do one more.
Okay. Missy, do you see one that appeals to you there?
I don't see any more.
Okay.
Which is one property you still need to get to? It's actually Belmont Mound, which is located just outside of Madison, just west of Madison. For some reason, I haven't been there. I couldn't tell you why, but it is definitely, I'm going to get there this year, hopefully this spring. So maybe the next time I'm talking about hidden gems, I will have been to all of them.
I know it's hard to choose. There are so many, and I'm lucky just in my work that I've been able to get to so many, but it's on my bucket list now to get to all of the rest of them. We're so lucky in Wisconsin to have, such great park system.
Okay, well, it's that time. I think we'll wrap up the program at this point. We hope you enjoyed these presentations today and that they have inspired you to explore and spend some time in nature soon. A big thank you to our presenters, Kate and Missy, as well as Monona Terrace, the Madison Senior Center, and our sponsor, all of us. Thank you all for attending. Happy Earth Day. Bye-bye.